All right, well, it's 8:33. Should we get started and the rest can catch up?
Works for me.
Okay, cool. Officially calling this meeting to order. And we are being recorded. Okay, great. I was going to have us vote on the minutes from our previous meeting, but Mark Martinez said he had some edits he wanted to make, and I have not yet heard from him.
So Jennifer, just a bit of procedure. You do need to actually make a roll call vote.
Okay. To do what? To call the meeting to order?
No, you individually need to acknowledge each person present, and they have to say they're here.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll call it as I see it on the screen. Mike,
I'm here.
can you state your name for the record, please?
No, that's fine. He just has to say he's here.
Okay, all right. Cato,
Here.
Beth,
Here.
Jen McGonigal,
Here.
Steve Errol,
Here.
and Jan Turnquist.
Here.
And I'm Jen Shinneman. And we have several guests with us today. I assume I don't need to roll call our guests. Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, I was going to send around the minutes, but Mark Martinez had indicated that he wanted to make an edit to the minutes, and I have not yet received that edit, so I'm going to give him until the next meeting to send that. Otherwise, we'll submit the previous meeting's minutes for a vote next time. All right, we have a lot happening from the town. I'm going to start with Beth, and then I want to thank both Marcia and Elizabeth for being here today. We have some very exciting things to talk about that will have a direct implication for economic vitality. But let's start first with Beth and town updates, what's happening around the holidays, tourism, vitality. Take it away.
So good morning. We have a new poster that I'll send out to this group. I just started circulating it yesterday with the 3 major holiday events that are happening in Concord. The first is December 4th with the holiday parade and tree lighting. The second is the holiday stroll in West Concord on the 10th. And the third is the 21st Hanukkah celebration. And as Jen and I were just talking, we also have the pajama party, which I didn't put on the poster, but we are promoting it. So if anybody wants to promote it, it looks like there's a lot participating this year, and everybody should put on your one-piece jammies and go to West Concord for coffee, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. And then there's story time at the library.
And what date is that for?
That is Saturday morning.
Saturday. And Deborah's starts at 5 a.m. We start in store at 6 a.m., but you can get 20% off the store starting at midnight online.
Great.
Very cool.
So there's a lot of fun events starting this weekend that get us all the way through the holiday season. And I do have a poster that I'll send out to everybody. So lots of great holiday stuff. In terms of the trolley, that ended on our contract, and the pilot program ended officially on Sunday. And we are working to try to solidify our funding sources for the next several years. So we are still in a holding pattern on all of the grants. And I'm just waiting on Erin to do an FAQ to send to everybody so that we can get letters of support that we will turn into the administration as soon as it turns over in January for the transportation bond bill. And FLAP grant, which is the big one that we applied to with national parks, we are still being told December. So fingers crossed, one or both of them come through and will help fund the service moving forward.
Okay, so Beth, as soon as we hear the sort of criteria, of course, this committee will be happy to provide a letter of support.
Yes, I will send, I'm going to send everybody the Volpay study, the transportation study, all the backup you need, the FLAP grant application. I was just waiting for that last bit from Erin. I'll follow up with her today. She was just going to do who to address it to and how to phrase it, just to make sure everybody has the right terminology. So we have a little bit of time, but obviously the sooner the better, and maybe we can get it on the agenda to approve for next time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for doing
Pleasure.
that. Any other major things from the town at this time, other than the warrant articles we're going to discuss?
Mary?
Mary?
Yeah, I would just like to give this committee an update on the Economic Vitality Director position. That job has been posted and they're actively recruiting, and the town manager is also recruiting for a deputy town manager. So she's going to be able to use the same recruiter to, to get that person on board. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of overlap in candidates. So that's looking good. That's moving forward as fast as we could hope for.
Wonderful. Mary, that it's posted on the site, on the town site?
No, I mean, the job is posted. I don't know where the job is actually posted, but they're actively recruiting is what I mean by that.
Okay, it might be helpful to know where it's posted. I'm just thinking that if we could support the process, perhaps by where appropriate on our individual, say LinkedIn accounts, we could post it out.
Great. Yep. Okay.
So Marcia or Elizabeth, would you know where that job description is posted, or should we just contact Cato?
Yeah, actually, Jen sent it around yesterday from the business partnership, so
Great.
Yep.
I can forward it on if that's okay.
And that's the officially posted description that we can use?
Yeah, it's got I'm looking at it right now. It's actually, I can email it to you guys right now.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, anyone that has a network that might yield a likely candidate, that would be helpful if you could post it around.
I don't see it yet on the town job postings, but it would live at the town job opportunities page. I don't see it yet, but they just approved it, so maybe it's not up there yet. But they usually also post through LinkedIn, the town's website, Indeed, on all of those places. So I expect that if it's not posted today, it will be very shortly.
Okay.
No, I read it yesterday. It seems like a very extensive job description.
Well, and I want to thank this committee because a lot of the work that we did together helped to inform that. So it was a great collaboration. I feel really good that the needs of this committee are well represented. So thank you, everybody. Okay, great. That is good news because we are going to be very busy these next couple of years as we lead up to our next topic, which is Rev 250. As some of you may have heard, we have a big birthday coming up in a couple of years. There's been some great activity at the town level. An executive committee has been appointed, several subcommittees have been appointed, and we're starting to wrap our arms around the many preparations that need to happen between now and spring of 2025. Oh, that was Marie. That's great. So, when I think about things from the economic vitality perspective, hi, Marie, welcome. We're talking about Rev 250. As I think about Rev 250, my sort of area of concern that I want to address with this committee is infrastructure preparations. I'm really glad to see Beth getting out ahead of the trolley question and transportation. I think our sort of conservative estimates are that we'll get anywhere from 125,000 to 200,000 people coming through Concord in a month. Is that right, Beth? More or less? Yeah. And when you think about things like parking, moving people around, bathrooms, hotel rooms, restaurants, and food, it's a pretty intimidating challenge. So people are moving on many fronts in that area. Certainly anything this committee can do to help. The trolley would be a great addition, a great help. But we also need to think about, this committee doesn't directly have authority to do anything other than make recommendations. But I'd like to see us maybe get a little more involved in at least sitting in on or chatting with other committees that will affect things like the ability to have food, which we'll talk about in a second with our two guests, but also things like hotel rooms and lodging. We can't directly affect that, but anything that we can do to brainstorm and support some of the other committees that are working on this, I just think it's important that we amplify the need. So that's something to think about. And then there's a lot of really exciting things happening. We've got cultural activities in progress, communications, great exciting things to talk about. There is a subcommittee on marketing and communications that will push those messages out. But as we become more aware of them, this committee can help spread the word out to our retail, restaurant, and service industry representatives, so everyone is in the know on what's available to them as we move forward. So I do want to jump ahead to, there are a couple of really interesting draft warrant articles that can directly affect our restaurant and food service capabilities. So I am very pleased to see Marcia and Elizabeth here today. Thank you for joining us. If you want to just take a moment and give an overview of what's being discussed, and then let us know what we can do to support you, please. Hi, Mark.
Great. So the planning board has heard from different people over the years, and they've been working on these two warrant articles. One is to allow mobile food establishments in town, which are currently prohibited, and to remove the prohibition on fast food restaurants. So they have, I've spoken with the health director, I've spoken with the police department, spoken with water and sewer, and got everybody's input, and then drafted the current drafts that were sent to this committee that the planning board is discussing. And the board would just really like EVC's input on the language and the explanation, see if there needs to be, additional clarification or additional things added to those. These are working drafts. And so any input on either the warrant, the amendment itself, or the explanation would be appreciated. Mark.
Elizabeth, what's the impetus? I understand the food truck, sort of need or desire. Is it related to the fast food article? And, how are we defining fast food? Isn't Dunkin' Donuts fast food? Isn't Starbucks fast food? Isn't, a number of these, existing restaurants fast food?
So they are two separate articles. They are two separate standing articles that the board is moving together separately. The mobile food establishment is one where I'm going to say for the past 3 decades at least, the building commissioner had a policy regarding mobile food trucks, and if it was on private property and it was a single event and they were, here and there, and it just has created a lot of confusion between vendors, the building commissioner who has to enforce the bylaw, and the health division. So, and the planning board has heard from individuals who, would like to have some, ability to have mobile food trucks in town. So the planning board's discussion for at least the past, I'm going to say, 2 years is this has been brought up, at various times, and in the past at least 6 months in their conversations, trying to find that balance between mobile food trucks being permitted in a limited basis and respecting the brick and mortar restaurant owners. So that's kind of been the, at least in the past 6 months, what they have been working for. The prohibition amending to allow fast food is a conversation where, again, policy-wise, for at least 30 years, and Marcia can jump in, since it was adopted, fast food restaurants have been prohibited. What the building commissioner determined is that if a restaurant has at least 12 seats for sit-down patrons, and more than 50% of their revenue generated, or the people coming into the restaurant, is sit-down patrons that it is a restaurant and not a fast food restaurant. They may have some takeout, but it's predominantly, a sit-down restaurant. And as you've noticed, so we do have Dunkin' Donuts, we do have Starbucks, and they have been able to basically find this workaround from being just like a McDonald's straight fast food. So the planning board, also recently, there was a little small Asian bubble tea restaurant that wanted to come in, and they didn't want to have any seating. And so they were told, you have to have seating. And then as the explanation in the draft warrant article talks about, the minute you have seating, it kicks in a sewer improvement fee, it kicks in plumbing code and requiring a handicap accessible bathroom. It kicks in, all these other requirements the minute you have seating, and it's significantly expensive. So that's one of the other items that the board has been discussing for that reason.
And I just want to provide some of the background. This was adopted, the fast food prohibition was adopted back in the probably late 70s, early 80s. It was a warrant article that was an amendment to the zoning bylaw promoted by the League of Women Voters. It was not a planning board driven article. And it was intended to address air pollution, people idling in their vehicles, and trash. Because of the way we've evolved over time, and what we have seen in these different workarounds. I mean, when Starbucks came to town, John Minty said, well, you're fast food. And they said, no, we're not, we're retail. He actually had another coffee shop review all of their documentation to say, okay, yes, they concluded it was a retail establishment with a component that was takeout. How it has played out over the years was not relevant to what was determined in the beginning. And so we're sort of stuck with that. And I think it's really important to say, this is the reality. We have the pizza shops were all pre-existing, they're pre-existing non-conforming, but allowed. And so all of these different permutations, and you're going, well, what gives? And so I think it helps to clarify. If we take it out of the zoning bylaw, we can address those other concerns, the air pollution, the trash, through that site plan review process or special permit process. So I think it's really helpful for the planning board to be looking at it at this point in time.
Marcia and Elizabeth, the fast food conversation, that is separate from any sort of drive-through capability, is that correct?
Yes, drive-throughs will still be prohibited.
Yeah. So, and then again, if we put it in the context of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, as we look to not just the month around the Rev 250, but in the timeline leading up to and on the other side of it, with the crush of humans coming into Concord, if we don't have more flexibility in how we feed these people, we're going to have a real problem. I think also during COVID, we saw kind of a shift in how people like to consume food. So I personally am very pleased to see this warrant come forward. We've talked before about how the sewer improvement fee, while we understand where it comes from, can be a deterrent for smaller restaurants, and perhaps this will provide some flexibility. Marcia, is it worth showing people the warrant? I want to.
Yeah. But before you go there, I would prefer that you think of Rev 250 as more like a year of celebration, not just a month.
Sure.
Because I think we should be celebrating for more than a year on either side of the 2020.
Oh yeah, and when we look at the demographics that Beth has mapped out, that's why I say it's sort of a wave that happens really from spring of this year up crescendoing in spring of 2025, and then there's probably a tail for another year or two after that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay.
Is there any, as you bring this up, is there any does this include like a takeout window? I'm thinking kind of like what New London did during COVID, or, like 80 Thoreau had Cussers. Is that the same idea? You could have a takeout window at an existing restaurant?
You could, it wouldn't prohibit that.
It
But
just
it
wouldn't
would
be a drive-up.
also,
A drive-up window would not be something we would promote.
Right, but a walk up sort of situation.
so you could have a little pop-up like sandwich shop that didn't have any seating, just you could walk up to a counter, order to go and take it away.
Correct.
Do you want to walk us through top line?
Sure.
We
Sure.
can absolutely circulate this after the meeting. I just wanted to have the most updated, and I know it's a work in progress, so.
Okay. Oh, I had emailed it to you last week. So
Well,
it has not. So the committee hasn't seen this.
No, because again, I wasn't sure if it
Oh.
was the most updated version.
Oh, okay. So to Mark's point, the First Amendment is to actually define what a fast food restaurant is. And you'll see that that's the changes are in bold italics. And then the second part is striking out under the prohibited uses, where it talks about fast food. We are including, I have one planning board member who should be a copyright editor as far as her grammar and use of the English language. So we are defining drive-in or drive-through, since some people feel drive-in is like Sonic, where you park your car, and drive-through is something different. So we are including that. But then the strikeout shows where it is being removed. And then coming up with a specific requirement for parking, since you could have a fast food restaurant that does not have any seating. Currently, restaurant parking is based on seating and the number of employees. So the board is still researching. They've pulled from I don't know, 6 or 8 different communities, what their parking requirements are. And we're still testing this metric of 1 space per 300 square feet. But it would still, if they could have seating or number of employees, or square footage and number of employees. The explanation goes through, as Marcia had said, what the original purpose was, continues on to say why things have changed, what has changed, and then goes through and continues to bullet those items. And then this is where I'm still doing work, and is finding those current examples to make sure that we have that metric for the 1 space per 300 square feet correct. So I think that's it so far.
Oh, that's great. And do you want to walk us through the food truck conversation?
You're on mute, Elizabeth.
Does anyone have any questions on this one?
No, this is great. Thank
I
you.
Elizabeth,
think Mark does.
Elizabeth, just just as background, does, when the planning board drafts language, do they look to other towns? Is this sort of written whole cloth? Like, what's a little bit of the sausage making as to Concord, trying to tackle this? Are we inventing a wheel, or are we just sort of copying and pasting from other towns?
So for this one, fast food was already defined in our zoning bylaw under the prohibited uses. So they did not amend that definition. It was already in the zoning bylaw, just in prohibited uses, and now they're putting it into restaurants. But generally, so for the parking, they have pulled 6 or 8, at least 6 or 8 other communities to see what their parking requirements are. And then the planning board works with that on how to fit that in, how that fits in with the town of Concord, because not every community, they're definitely not the same. So that's why they're going through the exercise of the 1 per 300 square feet and seeing, how that works with existing businesses. And every time a zoning bylaw is proposed by the planning board, they speak to town staff, and whether for this one, it was building commissioner, public health director, and water and sewer. And so that's how that happens.
So just Liz, a quick follow-up. With regard to the ratio of seats to parking, in many of the downtown areas, there is no parking per se, correct? So we're still going to have to defer, if you will, or have this subject and conditioned upon site plan review. Is that the right terminology?
So for, let's say, a change of use, so like when Cafe Nero went in with a change of use, requires site plan approval, but then because there is no parking, they are required to get a special permit for relief from parking. So that would still be the case for any use, regardless of whether it's a restaurant or not. That's a product of Concord Center or West Concord Village. There's a lot of places that don't have parking or enough parking. So that's not restaurant specific or fast food restaurant specific. That's specific to that area. So they would still need to go through special permit for relief from parking.
Sorry,
so-
Elizabeth, I see in here, you're saying operations such as the Walden Sandwich Shop, New London Style Pizza would no longer be allowed. What does that mean?
So this is the explanation from 1981.
Oh, I see. And this is what you're proposing to amend. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, great. Okay, do you want to walk us through the food truck warrant now?
Sure.
I did send everyone that email now that I know that that is the most current version, but it's helpful if you want to share it too.
Yep. Okay. Oops. So for this warrant article, mobile food establishments have been a topic of discussion for 20 years at least, Marcia. And the previous building commissioner, John Minty, wrote up a write-up at one time and came to the planning board in 1998 or something. And then every couple of years, it kind of gets revisited. And I think it was discussed by the planning board the last time in 2016, I think. So there's a lot of history and a lot of information that the planning board pulled together to develop this bylaw. And part of this, as you go through, one, the board's been trying to find that balance between mobile food trucks and the brick and mortar restaurants. So you start with item A, where the food truck has to be on either on private property or on municipal property if authorized by the town manager. Combine that with item E, a food truck can't just come to town, park in the Kite Road parking lot or on Main Street or Walden Street and sell food. So there's specific locations where they can be allowed by owner permission or town manager's permission. Item B, there's peddler and hawker's license from the police department that's required. and then various licenses that are required from the health division. So we want to make sure that they're compliant, and that's item B. Item C, and this is, why it's a draft and it's under discussion. Again, trying to find that balance with the brick and mortar restaurant. 52 days in a calendar year is, either once a week, or I know there's a farm stand in Littleton where there's a little coffee food truck that comes on Saturday and Sundays, and a seafood truck comes on Wednesdays and Saturdays, when the farm stand is open. So that's going to be a condensed period of time, during their, growing season, whether it's May to October. So a food truck could come in that case, more than once a week. Maybe it's twice a week for a condensed period of time. The license that the health division issues does specifically state the number of days that that permit is permitted. So whether it's a 1-day license where somebody wants to have a birthday party and have a pizza truck, that might be a 1-day license, or a seasonal license if a farm stand has somebody come for 3 months or something. Item D was trying to find that balance between food trucks and the brick and mortar restaurants, where you could have two food trucks on the property, but more than two, you would have to go through a special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that's the paragraph under G, where maybe the town and the EVC does want to sponsor a mobile food truck event at Verrill Farm. So you can go through a special permit process to do that. So the planning board wanted to, at least have some flexibility in that sense. Abutters within 300 feet get notified. There's a notification in the paper, and provide that flexibility by special permit. I already addressed E, and item F deals with the perfect example is reasons to be cheerful. They have a mobile food truck, and he is not able to park it at the site. Under the food code, a mobile food truck has to have this base of operations license, where the health department is the one that licenses the food truck like a restaurant. It has to have, holding tank, water tank, certain clean sinks and prep areas and different things specific to a food truck. And that food truck has to have, and that license is called a base of operation. For your base of operation, that food truck has to have available to it what the food code calls a commissary, where that operator can unload the waste, get more water, clean their dishes, where food is held before it's brought onto the food truck. So that's where for F, we talked about there may be a number of brick and mortar restaurants that would also like to have a food truck. We think Adelita's food truck would be awesome. So to be able to, under the food code, have that happen, we have item F, but then we also had to include in the actual definition under restaurants, the permitted use, that as an accessory use to an existing restaurant, you could have a mobile food establishment. So that amendment to 454 is specifically to allow item F and to specifically address the issue in the food code, that a food truck in Concord that wants to be a base of operation with a restaurant is permitted and that restaurant can act as the commissary for the food truck. So all of that is what the board has started to try to explain in the explanation. And that's where I'm hopeful after everybody's had time to read this, and maybe at your next meeting have a conversation, you know, if something needs to be changed, or if you think the explanation needs to include additional information to address questions, that would be great. The planning board is looking to get comments back from everybody and update this draft at their meeting December 13th, and then they will finalize it on their meeting January 3rd to submit to the warrant on the 4th.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes, Mark.
Elizabeth, where is the planning board as far as gathering support of these? And I guess my big question is, you know, are these two articles, are they able to be positioned in a somewhat simple, non-controversial form? Or are we expecting there to be a lot of discussion, opposition on sort of philosophical, you know, concerns? And I'm just wondering, you know, I think that one of the things that at least I've observed is, you know, unfortunately, something that has really good intent gets muddled and destroyed because it gets going on the wrong tangent or irritates a certain noisy component of the residents and becomes complicated. So is there a way to make this simple and clear cut and supported? And can the business community help support it? How can this sort of be simplified and, you know, presented?
So at this time, that's specifically why the planning board has sent the draft article to this committee, the Concord Business Partnership, would like the Chamber of Commerce to discuss it. I've also sent it out to 3 or 4 different restaurant owners for their input, to make sure they're on board. Once the planning board has that final working draft, they want to send it to the League of Women Voters, since they were the ones back in 1981. So it's, I think, from the support that all of these people can do to help this is right now get it out in the conversation, to see, you know, what are people's issues and concerns. You know, a restaurant, the fear of traffic has to do with drive-throughs or inappropriate site circulation, which that would be the Starbucks example. But you could have something else in where Starbucks is that creates the same issue as far as traffic. It's not an appropriate site for an intense use. But the concerns that are raised is for the planning board is to be able to try and address those concerns, hopefully now before the warrant gets submitted, to either amend the actual language or include additional information in the explanation. Once it's submitted, then I think it's trying to continually get other groups involved to look at this before then there's the public hearing before town meeting.
So Mark raises a really good question, and perhaps we can get out ahead of it through some public awareness generation. You know, we do finally have what seems to be a well-working newspaper in town. We could do a series of little articles on, you know, little Joey's excited to finally see the ice cream truck be able to drive through his neighborhood, or, you know, a birthday party somewhere where, The kids are enjoying Adelitas, kind of showing people the positive side of what this could do, or, Ag Day, now you can get, your hot cup of coffee or something. There's a lot of really great benefits, and if we can get out ahead of it and showcase those benefits proactively, because Mark's right, people can often be resistant to change of any kind, and if we can show them the benefits, then that might help.
So that was something I skipped over, and at least for the food truck is, and let me bring it up again. The planning board had a specific conversation about ice cream trucks, because under the food code, the state food code, they are treated slightly different than mobile food establishments. But the planning board specifically included item G, because an ice cream truck vendor is specifically defined in the state food code, and the planning board did want an ice cream truck to be able to drive down a neighborhood. And so that's where item G specifically addresses ice cream trucks and them being able to drive through a neighborhood.
So I think you've done a really good job of trying to get out ahead of questions with some of the exemptions that you've put in place. For example, if we have a festival or something coming up, there is a mechanism to request an exemption for multiple food trucks. My question is, have you heard back from some of the brick and mortar restaurant owners about having food trucks within a certain number of feet of a brick and mortar? Is that something they would request, or?
So so far we haven't, I've heard informally from some of them, and so far no significant issues and concerns have been raised, but the bylaw currently says you cannot park on a public road. So the food truck would have to be on private property, and somebody owns that private property where that restaurant is located. So if the property owner allows the food truck, I would hope they would at least be in conversation with their tenant. So it's again, it's what is that balance? But and then there's some property owners that they own the property where their restaurant is located. So if there was a food truck, it's because that restaurant owner wanted, so maybe it's something complimentary to the restaurant, and they're holding an event, and they want to have this complimentary food truck.
One example, Concord Market for a little while had that cappuccino truck.
Yes, that's the perfect example, and that was one that Elizabeth Akers-Moore had commented on.
Yeah, that's great. One quick question, just mechanically wise, how would that impact, for example, the Old Manse has a walking play, right? And they want to have a food truck available for their event. I guess that's the trustees, they would just go through the same process of application. And what about the parks? Are they under our domain if they wanted to have a food truck in, say, the parking lot of the national park? So they can do that now. They don't need our permission for that. But I know getting anything done differently with the national parks is its whole special level of red tape. So
right. They would still need to get all the licenses and items from the police and from the health division to operate.
But currently, can they do that right now? They can't, right?
Yep,
They could.
currently banned. They're
Oh, okay.
federal property.
Oh, okay, all right.
What about private property? And I've been to several 40th, 50th birthday parties where there's a food truck, or a youth sports fundraiser where we brought in a pizza truck, and we guarantee them $1,500. Everything over $1,500 goes to the to the youth sport. Are those like prohibited uses right now, or is that
Yeah.
something where you need a permit? Oh, they are. Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
And that's been the challenge for the building commissioner. He has, if it happens on a weekend, he's not in town, he's not going to enforce it. But if you ask him, he'll say it's prohibited. And so we're trying to take what is going on in the public realm to say, okay, we're going to allow it. We're going to have some parameters and a framework for it, but it should be allowed because this is what people want. And it is a fundraiser. I know that Picnic in the Park has food vendors. We had 3 food vendors at Porch Fest. And so why are we deliberately making something that's difficult, that we can't enforce, that we won't enforce, but is actually prohibited from happening? And I think that's a message that we need to get out as well.
So it's good housekeeping. We're updating our bylaws to reflect today's reality.
Thank you. That's a great explanation, Jennifer. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, wait, I gotta add that to the,
Good housekeeping.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Marie, does the chamber have a subset of restaurant under retail, or is it the retail group, or is there a way we can sort of streamline this through the chamber to sort of get to the right group of people?
Well, I was just thinking about talking to Beth about that. We have a meeting tomorrow and we have a board meeting on Friday. Right now, we only have 2 or 3 restaurants that are actually members of the chamber. So we wouldn't reach all of the hospitality restaurant pieces through our membership, but we certainly would reach out to them and keep them informed and try to pull them into the circle of participating in this topic. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, I do have a list that Jeremy had given me from the town manager's office that I use as part of when I send out an email. I think it's everybody that had a license, a restaurant license. So I do have that list that we can utilize in terms of sending communication out. It's just they're not all chamber members, they're not all EBC members, but it is a way to get that message out. So if that's something that Elizabeth or somebody wants to send me, I can email that group. It's not 100%, but.
Yeah, I think just a general comment. I think that this is a great opportunity to really, Marie uses almost as a recruiting exercise.
Yeah.
That is with new town management, new town manager leadership, with the EVO position now being created, and having the connection through the chamber, having the connection through the partnership. I think in some regards, it's a really great time to start recruiting members to understand what the differences are between the chamber and the partnership, and why you should probably, join one of them. And that the best way to maybe streamline information and input is exactly through the chamber. So,
right.
I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't hammer that message.
Those are all notes I wrote down before we
Yeah.
chatted about it right now.
so Beth, if you want to send me that list, I'll send out an email to those people with the bylaw, and so that they can contact me directly with questions or comments or suggestions.
You got it.
And Elizabeth, while I don't think Discover Concord magazine would be a right venue for supporting this, the newspaper would.
Oh,
And-
gosh, yes. The
and-
planning board is
Yeah.
very excited to be able to actually write a press release and have it show up in the paper.
And if I can be helpful at all in sort of massaging messaging to reflect what EVC is doing, reach out anytime. Happy to collaborate around that.
No, I think your previous suggestion, the EVC, even, having the EVC put in an article in support of this.
Yeah.
I think it's probably after the warrant closes,
Yep.
So that the final versions are up on the website and we can
Mhm.
reference them and people can go there directly. That would be great.
And even through the chamber, Marie and Beth, we could dust off our Concord Together skill set. And remember when we did sort of our weekly videos, we could go restaurant to restaurant and talk about in a dream world, what would a food truck look like for you? Where would you go? What would you do? And sort of just have this positive, uplifting campaign of all the great stuff that this could open up.
That would
Like a
be
shared, like a
fantastic.
shared food truck for everybody?
Yeah. Ice
Um,
cream for adults.
Marie, you said you have a meeting tomorrow or Friday.
Well, we
is
have
that-
our board meeting on Friday, where I'll
Okay,
bring
but-
it up. Tomorrow is our strategic planning committee.
Okay, so if you have a meeting, the beginning of December before the 13th, if you want me to attend, please let me know.
Yeah, Beth and I were just texting about having you present to the chamber board, which would be great. So we'll have to set up another meeting, which we'll decide on Friday and let you know.
Okay, so just so you know, I will be out of the office on December 2nd and
I'll call you
December
after this
5th.
meeting and I'll find out some dates that might be good for you that I can propose to the board.
Okay, if you want to just send me an email since I'm
Sure.
currently at the doctor's
Undisclosed
office.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. That was really helpful. Just a quick question. Do we have any updates on the health department, sort of that whole process moving forward? Staff, any updates there?
We have hired an environmental health inspector. His name is Michael Funioli. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's Funiaole. So Funaiole. So I'm still working on it. I haven't talked to him directly to say how do you pronounce your last name? But he started October 27th and is getting up to speed. So now we are fully staffed, although there is some additional training that's going to be necessary. Gabrielle is still public health director or public health inspector. Melanie Deneen is our public health director. We're looking at, we were surprised by Emerson Hospital, who abruptly canceled their contract with Emerson Home Care, actually. So we do not have a public health nurse currently in place, but working with the Great Meadows Collaborative to Public Health Collaborative to get that public health nursing feature or aspect incorporated into the health division, and we'll be seeking a public health nurse position in the health division this coming year. So we're still working on it and getting everything up to speed.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't think we have any members of the public at large with us today, do we? No? All right, are there any other? Yes, Jan.
Sorry, I'm going to have to leave because for the 250th celebration, I have another meeting in the library in a few minutes. But I wanted to ask one question that I think may be actually not applicable, but I was just curious, does this have any impact on the Formula One discussions that we've had, as far as the kind of fast food?
So if you're talking about the formula business,
Yes.
so whether something formula business is specifically defined in the zoning bylaw and it has to meet certain parameters. It doesn't matter whether it's a restaurant, a retail store, a real estate office. If it meets those parameters that define a formula business, then it's a formula business. So that there's currently limitations on formula business in Concord Center, Thoreau Depot, West Concord Village, and West Concord Business. So that's in place, and whether. a rest-
Irrelevant to this discussion, it
Yeah.
sounds like. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Then the only other thing, because I have to go, I just want to be sure, I know we're focused on the future a lot here, which of course we should be, but I just, in the very near term future, I wanted to just mention that the Board of Selectmen the Select Board did put out a proclamation. One little word got left out at one point, but it's still very clear. It is for a proclamation for Louisa May Alcott Day. Concord Players and Orchard House combined to put this out because Concord Players on this coming Sunday, November 27th, which is 2 days prior to the actual birth date of Louisa May Alcott, actually her father's birthday too, which is November 29th. They're proclaiming it Louisa May Alcott Day because Concord Players will be announcing on that day at a birthday party at 51 Walden that they are going to put on the musical version of Little Women in 2023, in the spring of 2023. And I know they want people to be aware of this. It is, as I say, on a Sunday afternoon, it's 4:30. It begins at 51 Walden. And if you go on the website, you can register to go to it. It's free, open to the public. It should be a lot of fun. It's sort of brief, 4:30 to 6:30, I think was the time frame. Anyway, 4:30 onward. And so I just wanted to mention that to people and mention that Orchard House has had a very successful season in this autumn, which now seems to have, as overnight, gone to winter. But in any case, I just wanted you to be aware of that and join in if you can.
Well, happy birthday, Louisa May and Bronson. And we'll be thinking of you.
Yes, all right, great. I'm so sorry I have to leave.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jan. It's always good to see you.
Great to see all of you. Bye-bye.
Well, I think this might be a good time to wrap up our meeting unless there's anything else anybody needed to. Yes, Mike.
I'd just like to tell you all, though, that in addition to your remarks about Rev 250, there's a state commission that's also dealing with this, and I am Concord's representative to that.
Oh, great.
Planning a bunch of events. The first big one happens actually next year, which is, I think, the Boston Tea Party. So they're planning a series of events leading up to the events here in Concord and Lexington around that. And then, of course, it spills into the national activity, which is 2026, which will be more focused in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I will write Henry and tell him that there are a number of subcommittees now that the state has put together, and one of them is marketing. And it's very important because the concern that I've had and expressed along with Senator Barrett is they need to get connected to the various towns and have a well-established set of activities that take place on April 19th. And so I'm going to encourage him to ask our marketing team to be at the subcommittee meetings for the state to make sure that those outreaches are undertaken. So thank you.
Well, that's great, Mike. And I'm actually the vice chair of the subcommittee on marketing communications. So please keep me in the loop. I'd love to know all about it. And Diane Proctor is the chair of that committee. So
I'll make sure to let you know.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Cato, and do I have a second from the committee? Okay, great. I'm going to do a roll call. All those in favor of adjourning, Mike?
Aye.
Jennifer says aye. Cato?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
Steve? He said he's waving. Yes. Marie?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
And Jen McGonigal?
Yes.
And Jan, you're still out there, so.
Yeah, I was just getting my coat on. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. We'll see you. I'm gonna book our next meeting earlier in December because the retail crush, and also to just get those final comments back to the committee in time for the warrant articles. Thanks, everyone. Have a great
See you
day.
guys. Bye.
Bye.